On today's show, it is episode 2000 of the Locked On Hawks podcast. We're joined by a guest that's familiar to the audience and to me. We'll talk about the state of the Hawks and more, and it's all coming up right now.
You are Locked On Hawks, your daily Atlanta Hawks podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Hello, friends. Welcome to episode 2000 of the Locked On Hawks podcast. I am your host, Rowland, coming to you on a Wednesday evening here in mid-June. And today's podcast is brought to you by the folks at the Game Time app. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. I also want to encourage you at the top of the show, as I always do, to make Locked On Hawks your first listen each and every day. Check us out and subscribe to the podcast anywhere you find your podcasts. That includes Apple and Spotify on the audio side. We're also on YouTube, and be sure to tell your friends and colleagues and family, anybody else in your life, about this podcast. And yeah, it's episode 2000 of the show. I launched this podcast in July of 2016. So we're almost 9 years and a big round number, shiny episode today. First of all, thank you to everyone who has listened and supported the podcast along the way. Not going anywhere. Plenty more to come. Maybe 2,000 more episodes. Obviously, we are busy on the podcast right now, in particular with the NBA draft and the offseason looming for the Hawks. And that is why I am bringing on a special guest on today's podcast. His name is Kevin Chouinard of Hawks.com and ATL in 29. Kevin is the person in my life that I spend the most time actually talking to about the Hawks, mostly in person, but Kevin is gracious enough to join me on the podcast today, and I appreciate him doing so. We'll talk about the state of the Hawks and much more. One more time, I want to thank everybody for listening to the podcast today, and always, please subscribe to this podcast, and we'll dive in right now with myself and Kevin Chouinard. I am joined now by a very special guest, a person I talk to all the time, but not on this podcast. I should probably ask you to come on the show more, but hey, I don't want you to. You have your own podcast. I want you to come on, but I don't want you to spend so much time talking to me in this form. Kevin Chouinard. Hello, sir.
Thank you for having me. It's good to finally be on your podcast for the first time.
That's not true. You've been on the show multiple times. I just don't ask you very often. If this is you asking me to come on more, I will ask you more if you want me to. But I said before I brought you in, I sit next to you at pretty much every Hawks game. I think we've probably spent an inordinate amount of time together talking about the Hawks in some form. In fact, I got an email that was, I think serious recently, that was asking me if you and I actually don't like each other. And I guess we'll spoil that now. Kevin and I, well, you may not like me. I like you. I like you.
No, we get along.
We're friends. Anyway, we'll talk about the state of the Hawks today. Like, I'm not going to make you do a ton of draft. We can end with the draft if you want to. I'm doing a lot of draft right now, but I figure it'd be a good time to kind of go back a little bit and talk about like where the Hawks are while I have a Hawks expert on the show with me. So how you feel about the Hawks right now? The draft's in a week. It's a big offseason. I think we know that. There's lots of decisions to be made. We actually got a real live on the record quote today from Monty Saleh in a press release, the first time ever. So how are we feeling?
I mean, we should feel good. Like it feels like they've done the big things and they have to correctly follow up by doing the little things. But that's always an easier problem to solve than to get the big things right. So should feel very good about them. I would think.
Yeah, I think so too. I think they're on the upswing. Obviously, there's every comparison you can make to the Pacers, who are playing in the finals right now, and like where the Hawks stack up in the East. There's always questions. Then we won't have time to answer all of them on this particular conversation. But they have a core. This is me talking now. Words in your mouth. They have a core that I like. I think their core is well constructed. They're going to probably need to add to it at some point to actually win a championship. I think we could probably agree on that. But they have 5 guys, I think, that are their core guys, and they all kind of make sense together. And they have these 2 picks in the draft that can kind of add to the team. I'll ask this question first. What do you think they need to do this summer? Like, what would your operating mindset be? Would you be kind of in just like accumulation mode, add to the core, see what you're going to do? Are you in big swing mode? Like, I think a lot of Hawks fans want a bigger splash, which is natural. But what do you think they need to kind of how do they approach this, knowing this is the first time front office, all those things?
I think they need to get depth, and I think it's hard to get that depth in the draft. I don't see a lot of players in their range that feel like instant fixes for what they need. So, I mean, they could still do that a whole number of ways, but at the same time, I don't think big swing in the draft is where they really need to be right now. I think they need to figure out what they can do to get a player, whether it's trade 13, trade 22. Like at some point, I feel like they've got to be on high alert to just get more depth to go with that core. That doesn't mean that they have to trade one of those two, but it depends on how they're going to go about using their other resources. So they know that. I don't know that. So that makes it harder for me to say what they should do in the draft when I don't fully know what their intentions are out of the draft.
Yep.
But they need depth. And if they're not committed to doing it through non-draft means, then they may need to get off of one of these picks to get a player.
Yeah, I think I'm glad you brought it up in that way, because I'm doing a lot of draft talk right now, and I try to say this, but like the draft is not done in a vacuum. Like you can approach picks in a vacuum. Like I'm actually a proponent of drafting best player available, and we can talk about that if you want to. But as far as like it's part of an overall plan, and because the draft is first, there is a level of uncertainty. Like one way that I've pushed back on this a little bit, it's not only about this, is that there's this belief that the Hawks have to draft a center because they just have to have it. Because I think part of that comes from a Congo skepticism and his height and all those things. Part of it also is that they don't have a backup center right now. And it's like, I get that if they didn't have free agency or the ability to trade, yeah, you'd have to add a center through the draft, but you have to do it somewhere. You have to get a backup center. We agree on that, but that it could be in a trade, it could be in free agency, something that has to do with rounding out the roster, because, you got Caris LeVert. That's a decision you have to make. That's a guy that they need. If he walks out the door, you have even less depth. So that's a big decision they have to make. There's the Trey domino. I don't know how you feel about that right now. We can talk about that if you want to, but it's adding depth is not a sexy thing to do in the, I want to list 5 players on a social media post era. This is my starting lineup. This is all that matters, but it does matter. And we saw that last year. I mean, it's, you don't have to look very far to see what happens when you lose even one player. Like Jalen Johnson goes down and you don't have requisite depth behind him, and you are in trouble. And it's happened a couple times to the Hawks. So when you say depth, are you thinking about positionally? Do you just need quality players? Like, when you say depth, what do you mean by that?
Well, you need depth pretty much across the board. But I think if you look at this Hawks roster, the instability within the roster especially is due to injury, and it's due to injury with their bigs. Like Trey is a guy who tends to stay healthy. Zachary Rissache looks like somebody who's going to play in a way sort of within himself and kind of stay healthy. Dyson Daniels had a very healthy season that he just went through. Like in their perimeter positions, they seem to have a bunch of guys who can generally stay healthy. And then if you flip that to the other side, Mo Gay, Onyeka Okongwu, Jalen Johnson, Larry Nance Jr., if he comes back, they just have a ton of people in their front court who have played a lot of 40, 50, 60 game seasons. And so, it's not played on paper. Like, you've got to realize where the most likely shortening of your roster is going to come from. And I think due to that, they've got to look big. I don't know that it's necessarily they have to have a center, but I think you have to be ready to have some size, even in your other positions. If you're drafting, somebody who you think is going to play 3, you really need that to be a big 3, just because, this tends to be a roster that when the injuries hit, they hit up front. It seems like it's been a couple of years running now where it's just they can't put enough big players on the floor because they don't have them at the end of the season. So I think the front court depth is more important, just because historically that's where their injuries are going to be.
Yeah, and it's interesting. I think 2 seasons ago, we talked a lot, and Quinn talked a lot, actually, in press conferences you and I were sitting next to each other in, about how they didn't have much size. That was a talking point last summer, right? And they did add it. Like, if you look at this at the fully formed roster last season, they had more size than they had previously. Zachary Rissache is thin, but he is every bit of 6'9", maybe even taller than that at this point. At the 3, Jalen Johnson has more than enough size at the 4. Yes, I know Okongwu is not the biggest guy at the 5. I get it, but they have Mo Gay. Dyson's a really big 2, actually, with how physically strong he is. Trey will always be small, but they did invest in some size. But they couldn't overhaul the entire roster in one summer to get all the size. And you're right. They suddenly felt very small. Like George Niang is not 6'10". He can play the 4. He's a thick guy. We all understand that about George. But he is, even that, there's some limitations to that. Karis LeVert at the 2 has plenty of size. If he's playing the 3, he's fairly undersized at that point in time. Terrence Mann is not the biggest guy in the world. Like, he's got decent size for a 2. Again, to your point, like, this is where I always say, and it's not just the draft, I want to always add as many like 6'8", 6'9" forwards as I can. Like, sign me up for all the 6'9" forwards. You can't have too many. Every time I try to draft or talk about a draft, like, well, don't they have Ricochet and Johnson? I'm like, yeah, they do. And you need 2 more of those guys if you can help it. You need so many more of it. So it is a size, even in the backcourt. I mean, Trey is Trey, but your backup point guard ideally wouldn't be a 6-foot guy. You would like to have, in a perfect world, this is me talking, but I'd like to have a 6'4", 6'5" backup point guard if I was the Hawks. Like, just variably speaking, someone like Don Barlow, who got overstretched quite a bit this year, was asked to play a bigger role than he's probably ready for, but is a guy that, if he was your 15th man, has size. Like, he's a big 4. He's kind of a small 5, but he's got size. He's got talent. He's a really young guy. So they need to invest there. Whether that means in the draft or free agency, we'll see. But I think we're on the same page with, like, just adding depth in general, but also they do just, I can already hear Quinn right now. They need more size. They just do.
It's moderately killing me to watch Tony Bradley in the finals and think that
your guy
should have been on the Hawks in March. Like, that would have solved so many problems. Like, he's playing in the NBA finals. Like, he's not good enough to come off your bench for 10 minutes a game in March. Like, I just feel like they needed to figure out some way to get him in there, because
they prioritized the future. They chose to They chose to give Dom, who's a young, talented guy, a team-controlled contract rather than just converting or signing Tony Bradley.
I don't think they did him any favors, because he's playing the wrong position. He's playing, he was just overmatched. Like, they needed him to do the things that he really wasn't capable of. And so it was just a mismatch. So, like, they prioritized it, but it wasn't a good developmental opportunity for him, in my opinion.
Today's show is brought to you by OLIPOP. OLIPOP is a new kind of soda made for people who love the classic taste of soda, but also something that actually supports their health. With only 2 to 5 grams of sugar and 9 grams of prebiotic fiber in every can, OLIPOP is reimagining soda in a way that's better for your gut. If you like traditional sodas, they're loaded with sugar. 39 grams in a regular Coke, or 44 grams in an Orange Fanta, for example. And OLIPOP flips that script with just a fraction of the sugar, no artificial sweeteners, and gut-friendly ingredients like OliSmart, which is a blend shown to support digestive and overall health. It is soda that tastes like the real thing, but it actually does something good for your body. And right now, I am really into the classic grape flavor. I am big into the OLIPOP universe right now. It's just something I drink a lot at the moment. And it tastes even better when you actually know that it supports your gut health with the OliSmart prebiotic blend. And from there, OLIPOP also gives you about a third of your daily recommended fiber, and it tastes great at the same time. Also get a free can of OLIPOP right now. Just buy any 2 cans in the store, and they will reimburse you for 1. Head to drinkolipop.com/lockedonnba to claim your free can and find OLIPOP near you. One more time, that is drinkolipop.com/lockedonnba. While I have you, I'm going to take advantage of you being a sicko like I am and talk about stuff that's, like, hard to talk about with guests in particular. Like, I can't have someone nationally be like, hey, what about Terrence Mann? Do you like? So going into year 2 with Terrence Mann, what do you think about that? Because every once in a while I get asked, like, all right, the Hawks trade for Terrence Mann. It was a weird trade. We kind of all agreed it's a weird trade. The Bogey trade was odd. Mann's got 3 years left. All these things. But he's got not a fresh start, but he's got a full offseason. The Hawks could look to move him. Like, he could be a matching salary in a trade if they wanted to do that. I think Niang is easier in that way because Niang's an expiring contract. Yeah. But what do you make of Terrence Mann and the Terrence Mann experience as of going into year 1.5, I guess, for him?
I mean, I feel like they have to look at him as potential salary filler if they can. I mean, it's difficult to maybe package him in a deal like that. That might be difficult. I'm sure there other teams aren't dying to take on that. It's not even like just about Terrence Mann. It's just a long contract. It's a long, big contract. So,
yep.
If you can get it, great. But now at this point, when you're trying to include him as salary salary filler. Other teams might be like, no, let's work this other way. But if you can package him in a deal, then that's certainly something that you should be trying to do. But yeah, it's going to be a fresh start. Again, things like, where do you try to get the depth for this roster? Well, if you get the depth with bigger players, like suddenly he fits more in a natural role. Like this wasn't the most natural fit for him playing, with Dom Barlow as his center. Like that was just, they used him a lot as, there were certainly a bunch of minutes at power forward at the end of the season because it was just, that's how thin they were. And that's just not the best way to use him. But he's got to figure it out on offense in particular. Like it's just, it was kind of tough to watch going through those play-in games. There were times in the play-in game where he was just not assertive enough on offense. And if, I think Quinn's system is predicated on ball movement, having lots of looks, playing through multiple opportunities through the shot clock. And if he's making long, slow decisions where he has to dribble 5 times, like that's a killer to what Quinn and, the rest of the staff wants to do offensively. So like they've got to figure out a way to make him fit. Maybe he misses shots. Maybe he's not going to be the greatest 3-point shooter this season, but he's got to fit within the system so that he's making quick decisions. Because at that point, it's not just Terrence Mann is killing Terrence Mann's offense. It's Terrence Mann is killing the whole bench offense. So like they've got to, reprogram is too strong of a word, but they've got to make it fit just so that he's fitting stylistically and not killing what they do on offense, because he was breaking down possessions too often. And so that just can't happen.
Yeah, I'm optimistic. Well, relatively speaking, I think he will be much more in tune to what the Hawks want him to do going into the next season.
Sure.
It's people underestimate. I know I'm not talking to you, like how hard it is to come in, especially for a guy who's never been traded. And he was pretty open with us even about how he hadn't been traded. Like he's been only in the Clippers. He had to move, all these things, and like different system. And he's not a guy that seemed to like click immediately with what they wanted to do. And Quinn's got a way he wants you to play in some ways. It's not like it's not entirely, tyrant like with Quinn. Like he adapts to players, but he does want you to play a certain way. But yeah, I mean, it's not a pile on of Terrence Mann, but he really is the only contract on the Hawks books that's not a good contract. Like clearly a good contract. And that's a good sign for the Hawks. Going back to what we talked about at the beginning, like a lot of teams have more than one shaky contract. The Hawks have one shaky contract, and it's Terrence Mann. That's a good spot to be in. That could change in the future. I mean, you give an extension that doesn't work out or whatever, but right now, everybody you have is on a good deal, other than maybe Terrence. So I wanted to ask you about him because he's a guy that I haven't talked about a lot this summer yet because it's not like his time. He's not like in trade rumors. He's not a free agent, all these things. But he's an interesting piece, and because they have a line, so allotted money to him, he's gonna play. If he's on the roster, like he's gonna be part of he's gonna be a top 8 player on the team if he's on the team. It's just you have to make that work in whatever way. Like he's kind of duplicative with Dyson in some ways, not always, but kind of. Like I don't love him and Dyson playing together, generally speaking. He's kind of Dyson's backup, but that's not a huge role. Dyson plays a lot, and it's just I find it to be very interesting in an under-discussed way, the Terrence Mann bit right now.
I think if you can find a team that has a lot of depth in their bigs that's searching for a perimeter piece, like if you can find somebody that's like, we have this bad center contract, and here we are, the Hawks, we have this bad guard contract. Maybe that's you might go and get a big who's not the most ideal contract, but if you're sort of swapping bad contract for bad contract, but you get the right sort of position, like that might be the kind of move where you can start to get that front court depth that they really need. And if, with 13 and 22, it might be something where you pick swap with them too. You give them a slightly better pick. You take back a slightly worse pick, something like that to get a contract that's maybe a little bit more palatable than Mann's, but he does feel like it's not like he's an untradeable contract, but
yeah,
if you trade him, you might get a contract that doesn't look so great either, but maybe it doesn't look so great in a way that actually fits your team a little bit better.
That is, I think, very possible. I referenced Karis LeVert earlier in passing. Would you be trying to sign Karis LeVert if you were the Hawks? And obviously, it matters the price and all those things. But would you be interested in a Karis LeVert reunion if you were the Hawks?
Yes, at the right price. Like this is one where I really don't have like a super strong feeling about it. Like it's hard. Like I guess there's a certain number where it's like, I'd like it below that number, and if it's above this other number, maybe it's not. You just have to have sort of the holistic approach. Like I don't know what are the other things that they're trying to do. I don't know what else they can do to kind of add depth to the roster, but if he came back, sure, that would be a good thing. Like that, it's all contingent on price now because you're kind of nibbling within the margins and you're trying to do things within a finite constraint. But at the right number, it's a good thing. But it's really hard to say, and it's hard to pinpoint it without a little bit more context of what they want to do in their other roster situations.
Yeah, and not to go back to Mann, but I also feel like LeVert and Mann are not like the best fit on the same roster. It's just an interesting thing. Like I've made the point that, and I believe this, it gets really hard for them offensive creation wise if they don't bring LeVert back. Like right. you don't want to overstretch LeVert either. Like he's not a guy that you want as your second best initiator on the roster. But like if you don't have him and this is the roster you have without him, they have to go get somebody. Like they can't go into the season with no other. They're already honestly, I think they're already short of creation with Karis LeVert on the roster.
Oh, absolutely.
Like it gets real dicey without him. And granted, having Jalen back will help with some of this stuff. But Jalen, I think, and I love Jalen, is probably overrated in that area by some people, some Hawks fans. Like,
well, we also haven't seen it though. Like,
fair, yeah,
we haven't seen it. I mean, we have seen it, but we haven't seen it where he's not playing a whole bunch of his minutes with Clint Capella.
That's fair.
And I know this is the wrong venue to
try
to rain on the Clint Capella parade.
It's fine.
But we saw it with Zachary. Like when Onyeka started instead of Clint, that turned Zachary's world upside down. Like that was just, he could, he was basically a corner 3-point shooter. And as soon as Onyeka was in the lineup, that changed everything for him because he could kind of run corner to corner along the baseline, and he could play in the dunker zone or in the dunker spot. And so he had this whole new path. It would just change the geometry of the court for him when Onyeka played instead of Clint. Because Clint, Onyeka was in the short roll. He's up around the free throw line, or he's out at the 3-point line. Opposite Zachary, like the spacing was just so different that Zachary really just kind of went from point A to point B as soon as Onyeka was in the starting lineup with him. And so Jalen and Onyeka have incredible chemistry to begin with, but it's not the kind of thing where Onyeka has been out there to start games with him. And so, it may now be the kind of situation where instead of the Hawks having to react to other teams, if Jalen starts the game putting pressure on the rim, the other team has to react before the Hawks. So like and the reason they're going to have to react is because he's putting pressure on the rim because he can create a little bit better with that space. Like it's not like he has incredible creation, but when the geometry of the court changes, he has the physical gifts to just do certain things that a lot of people can't. And so teams are going to have to react with a very limited number of options because they're just not going to have that many guys who can cover Jalen in the first place.
No, it's true. And I'm glad you pointed that out. It's true. I still think, I think you nodded with me. Like they still need more shot creation.
They need way more.
And again, if they don't have LeVert, it even becomes a more glaring issue. And maybe there's a deal in conjunction. Like maybe then they could trade around the draft for a shot creator or someone else, and then that lets them kind of let Karis go. I don't know. I think from what I've heard and what's been reported that they're interested in bringing Karis back. I'm thinking that's probably going to happen. I'm on board with that. As long as you don't get crazy with the number, I think it's a good sign for the Hawks that there isn't a lot of money out there beyond the mid-level exception. And if you give Karis mid-level exception money, that's fine. Like he's worth that kind of money. That's fine. If there was like a $20 million offer waiting for Karis LeVert, I'd get a little bit queasy, but I don't think that offer exists if I had to guess. And if it is, maybe it's a short-term thing where like maybe you're overpaying him annually to keep the years down. I'm okay with that too. there's some wiggle room there. But I think he's a good player. He's a good defender too. He's not he's not the biggest guy in the world, but he can defend guards and do a good job there and check boxes.
No, he's a great player. I think the biggest thing that you worry about with him is just health. Like if he's healthy, he's fine. He'll fit what they need.
Today's show is brought to you by Game Time. It's looking like the NBA playoffs, the intensity, the buzzer beaters, the fans losing their minds. It's all kind of the experience of the atmosphere that you have to experience live. If you want in, at Game Time, they make it fast and easy to get seats, even for the biggest possible playoff games. Prices on the app actually drop when closer to tip-off, and they have these killer last-minute deals and no surprise fees, and all that makes Game Time a total game changer for you. I love that I can see my exact view before I buy the tickets with no surprises when you actually arrive at the venue. And the NFL schedule is now out as well. You better believe I'm already looking at my plans for the fall and the calendars, picking up which games to hit, how to travel, all that stuff. And Game Time makes it actually scoring NFL tickets really as easy as possible. And with the Game Time guarantee, your tickets are also 100% authentic. They will arrive on time for you, and you always get the best possible price at Game Time with fees included. So actually what you see is what you pay at Game Time. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets right now with the Game Time app. Download the Game Time app right now, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and use that code LOCKEDONNBA, LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Download the Game Time app today. Last minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed. I want to ask you another question about the deeper rotation, and it's about Georges Niang. Not about Niang necessarily, but going into the season, we talked about adding depth. Niang is currently the backup power forward in some ways. They have Mo Gay too, and Mo took a huge step forward at the end of the season, played some 5, played some 4. Offensive questions. Is now that they have Jalen back, is having Niang and Mo enough at the backup 4? Like, for instance, we'll probably come back to this. No matter who they draft, I'm probably going to tell people that rookie is not going to help them win a ton as a rookie. Either one of the guys they drafted, if they make 2 picks. So if you're trying to win this year, do they need to invest more in another guy who could play backup 4 somewhere on the roster? Maybe it's someone who could play backup 3 too. Or like, can you get away with going into the season with Niang and Mo behind Jalen?
That's a good question.
That's what I've been contemplating a lot, because it's like I think Georges Niang is pretty good, honestly, but there's some matchups where it's like, man, I don't know if he can play tonight. And right now he has to play every night with the way they've built the roster. I think it'd be nice to have a situation where he doesn't have to play.
Again, I keep going back to it, but for me, it's like fine. About health.
Yeah,
because I trust Niang. Niang's just kind of roll him out there. He's going to go out and play and be healthy. Like, I don't worry about it.
Well, speaking of guys who have like incredible records of health, knock on wood, but Niang doesn't get hurt. Like, he pretty much never gets hurt. So that's good.
Yeah, I mean, that's what I do when I'm playing basketball. People are like, "Are you okay?" I'm like, I don't move fast enough to get hurt. I don't jump high enough to get hurt. I'm fine. Like, it's just physics. Like, we're good. But I worry about it with respect to Mo Gay. Like,
yeah.
He's not, he hasn't shown like, hey, I can be a 60 game a year. I'm going to play 3 games in 4 nights and be healthy. So a little bit, I'm still kind of partial, and part of it is, we don't know what the team's going to look like next year, but I'm still kind of partial to the lineups that have Niang at the 3. Like, that's fine with me. When you're as desperate for shooting as the Hawks are right now, like, playing Niang at the 3 works for me. Like, because if you play him at the 3, what you're doing is you should be doubling up with your rim protectors. And so if that's the case, you should have your rim protectors situated out there in such a way that one of them is going to be relatively close to the rim. And so then Niang can just play. Like, you might have to figure out some things. Maybe this isn't what you do when Trey's out there. You do this when Trey is off or something. But, like, put Niang on somebody that he could, certainly not an offensive focal point when he's out at the 3, give him a couple of rim protectors. Like, that's fine. You need his shooting. He's an unbelievable shooter. He's a smart basketball player. He knows Quinn's offense completely and thoroughly. So, like, I want Niang back. I hope he's back. Obviously he's under contract. I don't mean it like that, but like, he's one of those pieces where if you make a deal, maybe he's salary filler, but I hope that's not the case. Like, I think, another year with better big depth. I think the problem for Niang was just that the Hawks had no good defensive bigs coming off the bench.
By the time he got there, it was dire. Yeah.
It was just too thin. So, like, I don't like the situation where Niang is the power forward with somebody who is not a stout, rebounding, rim protecting 5. Like if you got kind of a wishy-washy 4-5 out there with him and he's the 4, that's just really hard to watch. We went through this with Sadiq Bey, and God bless Sadiq Bey. He was, again, like I said, the depth of the bigs has been, with respect to injuries, been an issue for the Hawks now. But Sadiq Bey sort of did the things that was asked of him, but they just had no pieces around him, and you just watch it, and it wasn't sustainable. And I feel that way with a lot of the lineups where Niang is at the 4, and I think he's a great basketball player, but you have to use him within the right context. So, if you don't think that Mo Gay is a stay healthy, play 70 games kind of player, then you get one more player.
Yeah. Makes sense to me. And I'm intrigued by Mo. I want to give Mo a real chance to contribute. I want to have Mo be, in the mix. I also have a hard time not having a backup plan if Mo can't stay healthy. And he just has, I said it's kind of similar to Kobe Buffkin. We don't have to do the whole Kobe Buffkin thing. Mo's proven more than Kobe has now.
Absolutely.
But it's similar. They just haven't, it's been health for both of those guys. Mo was out for a long time. He just happened to come back this year and show some stuff. Hopefully Kobe does the same in year 3. You don't know that at this point in time. We could go all day on this stuff and we won't have to. I do want to, before I let you go, ask about the draft, because the draft's in a week, as you and I are talking. I've heard you guys at ATL and 29 kind of wade into the draft waters a little bit. It's funny. I don't want to know how many guys you've planned to talk about on each episode, because then I know you get to 2 of them, and I can kind of hear you laughing that you've only gotten to 2 players. That's what I do on the podcast too. We don't talk about a ton of players, but even going into the draft, and obviously I know you've watched guys by now. Anybody standing out to you? Any theoretical skill sets? State of the draft? Where are we? The Hawks are in this weird spot. I've been doing a lot of draft stuff with people that cover the draft. You cover the Hawks. So what are you thinking?
I mean, to me, let me get a list of names here just so that I'm not forgetting somebody or leaving somebody out. The thing to me is I don't see the salute. In looking at the players that are there, I hear a lot of draft to center, draft to center, draft to center. It's hard to see a lot of these guys being a ready center, especially this year. Obviously this year, but even I don't know. I think there are some players that are just overvalued because of their size. And you watch what they did in playing games at the college level or in Europe, and you watch these games and it's not ready, probably not even close to being ready. So when I look at this draft, what I'm thinking is, first of all, drafting a big, I don't think you're going to solve anything for year 1 and maybe not for year 2 if you draft a big.
Agreed.
I don't think you want to try to package the 2 picks and trade up for a big. That doesn't look like a palatable option to me either. I don't think that solves any problems. I'm sort of more in the situation of, try to get a good player. I think they're going to have to react on the spot. If you have 1 player, 2 players, 3 players, can you wait and see if Colin Murray Boyles falls to you? I feel like he would be a really good fit for what they need in terms of not size at one position, but just kind of overall size, and a guy who's kind of ready to, closer to being ready than some of these bigs are.
Yep.
So I feel like the big problem is going to have to be solved maybe separate from the draft. I don't see the solution with the players who are here. I don't feel good about moving up, and I don't feel good about drafting a lot of these bigger players who, when I watch the tape from what they did in college or Europe, I just don't feel that good about it. So I think it's more of you're going to have to react on the fly. I feel like what they should be doing is, have a list of 1, 2, 3, 4 players who might drop to them at 13 and then be ready to adapt.
Yeah, I mean, you kind of have to do that anyways. It's one of the challenges
Sure.
you have.
I think it's more pressing this year than it is has been in a lot of years. They're so close and they have such specific needs that I think that this should probably be a draft where they are very active, as opposed to a lot of drafts where it's do what you can, maybe you're more in developmental mode. They're closer. They need to get guys who are ready and fit better now than they have been in the last couple of seasons.
Yeah, I'm okay taking one project. Like if they like a guy that's not going to help them. For instance, I'm not saying they have to draft this guy, but if they wanted to draft J, who's like the very raw, not anywhere close to being able to help you big, I'm okay with that as long as you treat it that way. Like he'll be in College Park a lot of the season. Like he's that level of guy. That's fine with me. You just got to know what you're getting into.
That's right.
And
so if you draft him at 13, then I think you need to be ready to make a move at 22, because I don't know that you have two roster spots that you want to commit to this kind of developmental project.
Yeah, I agree. I do think that in a vacuum, you want to add somebody that not that necessarily has to play a ton for you, but that can be on the court maybe early in the season, or at least by the middle of the season. I'm a proponent always of saying, rookies are generally not very good in overall, but if you draft, again, it doesn't have to be this guy, but if you draft Nate Clifford, he could probably play for you like at some point this year. If you draft someone like Rasheer Fleming or Walter Clayton Jr., or like some of these guys who have like more ready-made games that may not kill you, even if it's somebody who's young and not polished yet, but like has the physical tools. Like I don't think Carter Bryant is going to be like a very great rookie, but if he falls to you, like he has a physicality to be able to be on the court in the NBA right now. I don't think he can play. I don't think he'd be very good as a rookie, but like maybe. But Murray Boyles is my guy too. Like people that heard the Locked On mock draft, he fell to me at 22. That's not going to happen, I don't think, in real life. But he did fall.
Carter Bryant at 22.
No, Murray Boyles. Murray Boyles.
Oh.
But even then, that was like the fastest possible send in the card. I was like, I thought about him at 13 and didn't take him. I was like, wow, 22, sign me up. But yeah, it's just a lot of give and take, and it's hard to go into the draft. I see a lot of certainty of like the Hawks need to do exactly this and this. And for me, it's like in a draft like this with spots that are close together, but not that close together, you have no clue who's going to be there. And no one does. 13 is more projectable, but by 22, it could be their group of guys they're evaluating at 22 could be 10 guys, like real easy. Because you just don't know who's going to still be there.
One last thought on the bigs.
Sure.
Is it's a little bit of like a sliding scale. Like the younger guys just don't look like they're ready. A lot of the older guys just don't look like they have a lot of defensive flexibility. Like there's a lot of them that just look like kind of drop only bigs. And I don't know that solves a whole lot of things for the Hawks.
Yeah.
Like the one guy who maybe is sort of in between, the one player who might be able to break that mold is Thomas Sorber. Like
I was going to say that same thing.
He's the kind of the one where like he's a younger guy, but he's ready. He's not going to be somebody you have to like play and drop. Like he's like maybe the one exception. But most of the other bigs is like, not ready. Or, with some of the older guys, ready, but ready to only do one thing. And I'm not sure that that's good enough for the Hawks at this point.
I was going to say, someone like Kalkbrenner, like I think can play in an NBA game right now.
Yes.
But that's not, and that's fine. I get it. But also to your point, I think it's pretty rigid. Like he's a massive, which helps. He's got some offensive versatility and maybe he's shooting, but defensively, I think he's a drop guy. That's just what he's going to have to be. And that's okay.
Probably not that good at drop either. Like it's
right. At least not early on.
It's like a drop marvel, like a drop, hope and pray kind of drop.
Yeah. I think we're on the same page. Like, and I don't think you should be drafting for the rookie season anyway. I will always say that, but be realistic on what you're getting would be what I would say. Do you have a favorite player? Is there a guy that you love? You don't have to have an answer for this. I just thought I might ask, or maybe it's two or whatever. Maybe it's Sorber. I don't know.
For like the 10th time tonight, I'm going to say, it's sort of dependent on,
of course,
what you think about him health wise, but like Cedric Coward, like,
yep.
I have a little bit of a sweet spot for him. I feel like he's one of those guys, like I can see him playing in an NBA game and fitting in with the things that he can do. So that's probably the one that I feel like I'm higher on compared to most.
Yeah.
But again, that's such a weird injury, and it's the kind of injury that when you have to like chase over picks, like I don't know.
Yeah,
I'm not a medical expert.
Yes, you are.
But no,
aren't
I'm
you?
not.
Wait, aren't you married to one or something?
Yeah, that doesn't help me. I'm still stupid.
Just make a phone.
Having a smart wife doesn't make me smart.
No, my only regret in the locked on mock draft is that Kyra went 12, and I was going to take him at 13, and he went 12. So I had to pivot, and I was kind of in a hurry anyway. But I like Coward as well. That's a swing, and that's a risky endeavor. I think people maybe that like him, like I think you and I both do. You don't want to ignore that's a risky pick. There's some upside there, but it's not. I wouldn't call it safe by any means. But yeah, I mean, there's not anybody that's I'm going to tell you it's like a grand slam, and I won't ask you to be negative about anybody. I almost asked you like who you don't want, but you know what? Let's not talk about that. It's not worth it. It's fine.
You sure?
I mean, if you have an answer, you feel free to share it if you want to get it on the record.
I feel that way about a few players. It's not even like, it's sort of like mildly like Reynaud. Not terribly excited about him because
Hawks fans are going to be mad at you now. Hawks fans are on Reynaud.
It feels like he's a drop center again. Like saying somebody is a drop center doesn't mean that they're good at drop. Like,
yeah,
you know what I mean?
Well,
like,
I heard our mutual friend Tyler compare it to Mike Muscala on your podcast, and I was like, oh, actually, it's pretty good.
That's a very reasonable comparison.
Defensively, I think he's got more offensive upside than Mike had, but the defensively, and that was the thing about Muscala. Defensively, is like he kind of had a drop, but he wasn't very good at it. Like he could do it, but he wasn't going to ever be good defensively. So not bad.
And and even then, like takes a couple of years. Like that's the kind of player where I don't think you're going to see him play year one. He should be in College Park if you draft him,
which is tough when he's a 4-year guy in college. Like if you're an older prospect and you're not more ready, like I think it might be more ready than maybe you do by that answer, but like I still not in super. I think 22 we totally fine.
That would be fine.
Yeah, I had someone. I think it was Rafael Barlow was like talking about him at 13 on my podcast, and I think Rafael's really smart. But I would not like that at 13. I think that's just too aggressive. I actually don't. I'm not a person in this class that's like yes at 13 and no at 22. Yes at 22 and no at 13. Generally speaking, it's just like too firm for me. But 13 just seems rich for a couple guys like that. Like I think him and maybe Kalkbrenner, that seems rich at 13. Like I wouldn't want to do that anyway. It won't happen anyway at 13. No. But like there's a couple guys like that. I think Asa Newell is like at 22, maybe 13. I wouldn't do that. I don't like Egor Demon very much, so the Hawks are going to draft him almost certainly. But there was I'm not sure if you saw it. There was an ESPN mock that I kind of made fun of on Patreon. It wasn't not at Gavoni and Jeremy Wu who do a really good job, but I believe it was Demon and oh man, who am I forgetting? It was Demon and Danny Wolf, and I was like, boy, that's the worst case scenario for me. I would not handle that well on the podcast.
But they have bags.
Yeah. Anyway, well, Kevin, I already kept you longer than I said I was going to. I appreciate you doing this. We could probably do 2 hours very easily.
Sorry you couldn't get Zach Lowe and you had to settle for me.
I did shoot my shot at Zach, who I know a little bit, but not enough to be like, please come on my podcast. And also, I don't know if, sometimes people are like hard. It's like hard to get people to come on that are like at big outlets because they're like not even allowed to sometimes. You have to like negotiate with their like people. It's hard. I love you, Zach. Come on the podcast. Kevin, again, thank you. If people, I don't know who is following my podcast that doesn't know your work already, but if that's happening, where can they find all your stuff? Because it should be followed.
Oh, just I write for Hawks.com and the ATL and 29 podcasts, which
great show. I enjoyed it thoroughly.
I can't tweet links anymore because Twitter died. So
you just say link in bio. That's what I do all the time now. It's like, and I feel so dumb doing that, but it works better than trying to send a link out, which is it's unfortunate. But
like many algorithms, it's broken.
It is very broken. Well, thank you, sir. I appreciate you doing this. And I will reveal now at the 40-minute mark. When I asked you to do the podcast about a week ago, you said that's a week from now. That was your answer. That was your text response to me. That's a week from now. I was like, is that a yes? Is that a no? Where are we here? Can we plan that far ahead? But no, thank you for making the time. I appreciate it, Kevin. As for everybody else, please subscribe to the podcast. Tell your friends. Follow ATL29, and we'll see you all next time.